My name is Sebastian, and in this video I'm going to show you some tips in Vim that I wish I knew earlier. And I'm not talking about how to exit Vim. I assume you know this already and that you have a somewhat basic understanding of the editor. But there are a lot of things that I noticed during the years and also actually quite recently that can make your life easier. So let's start right away. The first one I want to show is relative line numbers. That's kind of interesting. So if we start up Vim, what I have here in some sort of, let's do a few lines. Let's say we have hello world. So what you notice here, my line numbering looks really weird on the left. So that's a relative line numbering. Here it shows the current line, but that all the other lines are not the actual absolute lines, but relatives. So why? Well, it's basically you can jump, like imagine some crosshair or something like that. If I want to jump up to hello, that's 6 up, right? So because it's 6 lines above the current line. So 1 down, 2 down, 3 down, and so on and so forth. And you can then combine this with, instead of going up, 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 down, 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 and things like that, you just say, I want to go down to world, 5 down, so 5J in this case, and then I'm there. Or now 7K for 7 up, and then I can jump up and down. So this is already quite helpful if you're used to that, or once you get used to that, that's pretty cool. That's also nice in combination with a context sort of environment. Let's start something like Markdown file where we say this is a title, and then this is a subtitle and things like that, where I then say I have a lot of lines in between, where then, let's make this at such that you can see it. So now I'm in this paragraph or a subsection, and then if I want to jump up, it still works with the relatives line number. So if I want to jump up to the next section, or if you use this in a programming language for a function class, whatever, I say 99 up, and then I'm there at the subsection, or all the way up. Well, all the way up is easy, but you get the point. So that's really helpful. Relative line numbers are pretty cool in this regard, and they help you just that you get used to them. All right, now the second one is, how do we actually map escape or use escape? Because depending on the keyboard that you use, especially if you use a laptop or then some MacBooks that don't even have a physical escape key, it might be quite difficult to hit this. So there are other ways, for example, to map J and K for the sort of rolling, where then you go back to the normal mode, but it really makes sense to have an actual escape. And what I did was just to remap that to caps lock. There were times when I did this on an operating system level. Gets a little bit harder depending on the operating system. It's quite easy on Linux. But now I use this other keyboard where you can actually remap stuff on the firmware directly. So, you can check out previous videos where I explained that. But that's a big one, just to use it in an easier way, so you don't have to do anything, you don't have to change any configuration, it's just there and it always works and you can easily access it. So I highly recommend that. Now, next one is this norm or normal mode that you can invoke from a command. So why would you do this? Well, it's kind of interesting. If we say, I have something like hello world, things like that, and I would like to, for example, add something for each and every line. So of course I could now say and go, have something like var, and then repeat this every time, but that's not that quick, right? But instead I could say, select all of these lines and then colon and do norm for normal. You can already type norm, that's shorter, but basically normal, and then type what you otherwise would press. So for example, uppercase I for insert on the left, and then say var space, and then enter to execute it. Okay, so that works quite nicely. Also with A for append something, for a semicolon, or these type of things. I do this quite often once I hit multiple things or added multiple things. So that's pretty cool to invoke the normal mode from for multiple line selections if you do the line visual line highlighting, and this works really, really well. So that's a very nice tip. Similar to that, and works slightly differently, has some nuance, is a vertical visual mode that you can hit with Control V. That's kind of cool or interesting. Looks a little bit like some other front-end editors out there. So I can say now I would like to select all of these lines like that. What you can do, why would I need this? So here, for example, if I do this and then I hit directly uppercase I can say do this magic for all of the lines what I did before already, so without typing this norm stuff. It's more limited, but then it's faster if you do the visual selection here for the vertical visual selection. So I can do this again, uppercase I, and then apply them on all the files. It also works, Control V, it also works for appending something, but then you need to jump to the back, like basically to the last character, which then you can do with just pressing $, and then it works to press uppercase A, and then we can say whatever you need, and that will be appended to all of these lines as well. So that works. That's a shortcut to do this other appending and inserting to each and every line that you select. That's kind of cool. Control V for this select. It's also helpful, what I recently just learned, for some more advanced arithmetic. So that's a kind of cool tip. Maybe you know that Vim can can do arithmetics, and I was showing this in a previous video before. So for example, what does that mean if I say I would like to calculate something? For example, I have my Java list and then I say get 0. I can say please increase that number and count it up or down with Control A or Control X. So that works. But it also works if we say we have, for example, a few of these, and then I would like to have some variable or whatever, extract them, and then typically you would say something like this, but you see it already gets quite cumbersome to count and press these keys, or have a prefix again like 5 and then Control A, which is a little bit more annoying. What you can do, you can select all of these lines again and then press G G Control A. If you press Control A, that was not without the G, sorry. If you press Control A just like that, all of them are added up, incremented. Or if you press G Control A, then they're incremented one by one. So basically what it does, Control A jumps always to the next one. So then on each line it jumps to the next one, and then depending on sort of the previous increment, they do this accordingly. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So of course I could do this like that. That's typically what we use, G Control A, and then here we go. If you had multiple of these integers or numbers here in your line, then what it can do, so again, I have to undo this. Then if I would select it and do this again, G, then it takes the first one as I've just seen. Or if I say for some reason I would like to increment this one, then again I can use this visual vertical select with Control V and then do the G, Control A, and then I can do the same trick for this one. These are just a few things I also learned recently that I can do with these selections, like either the normal line selection or vertical selection plus the arithmetics. I think that's just kind of a cool thing. So now that's also something I learned recently and got annoyed quite a few times by not knowing about it, because that's really helpful. We can, once we are in the visual mode, switch the direction or sort of the end on which you select by, where basically your orange thingy is here, the cursor, by pressing O. So once we're in the visual mode, now I can select up here, then I can switch down there, and I can make it bigger and smaller just how I want to, which is really nice, because I had this a few times that you start selecting everything at the start of a function and then you're like, oh, now I missed one line or something like this and you need to do it over. No, you can actually just press O, make it bigger, smaller, however you want to do. So O changes the selection of this here. Works for both the line selection and also the normal visual selection. So that's pretty cool. Also, what I recently just found out, and I should have known this much earlier, is percent sign for jumping to the matching, bracket, basically, like different brackets that you can do. So for example, if I say I have something like this and this and this, that's now not a valid syntax, but I can use percentage sign to switch to the next one, or to have that, which is especially helpful if we say I would like to have some selection or some action with that. So for example, I want to delete everything here in this particular block. It could be a function block, or let's have some curly bracket, that I would like to delete anything inside. I'll show you another tip about that later. I can say, okay, now please do something like a visual select to the next one. Or actually just do a delete to the next one. So D and then %, that basically, deletes everything here inside, in between. So that is kind of helpful. And it's also helpful if you have something like a very long function where you say, okay, you could jump here to that function based on some paragraph by jumping with brackets. Or you just go there and say, okay, jump to the end, and then %, jump. Here you don't really see this. It includes something here. You jump to the beginning and the end of the function with that %. So that's pretty cool, both for movement combinations like a visual selection or deletion, or just by jumping around. So that's really nice. What is also really nice is I and A, not for insert and append, but for a selection with inside a word or inside a paragraph. So that's pretty cool. Let's undo this again. And say something like, hello world, where we say, if I would like to select the whole word here and the whole world, I could go there, go back, visual select, and go to the end of the word. Sorry, that's E for the end of the word, and select this. But that's rather cumbersome. I could also say, okay, V for visual select, I for inside, W for that word. So that looks like following. That I say V-I-W. Or what you can also do, if I say V-A-W, it would select this, but then also with that space. So it depends what you have. It's especially helpful if you don't do it with a word, but also with something. It works with parentheses and with quotes here. If I say hello, let's do this. If I say, for example, I would like to select just a hello, then I can VIW. If I would like to select this, the quotes, I say VI quotes. That's inside the quote, so VI, and then I press this quote. Or I say VA quote. That also selects the quotes here. So that's interesting if I have some surrounding character that I want to select by, and this works with the single double quotes with parentheses and so on, then this works quite nicely. So I can say VI, and then I press a parenthesis. So now it's inside VA, now it's including that. So of course I can combine this then with a movement or an action where I say C for substitute that, CI, everything inside the quotes or anything inside the parenthesis. Sorry, that was a V. CI parenthesis, and I change this here. Same for the curly braces, same for these other things. That's especially helpful if, for example, they're somewhere on this line. And then I say, okay, please select anything inside the curly braces, or substitute that, or copy it, delete it, and so on and so forth. So that's really helpful. I don't need to search for that or jump around even. It will just do this, and then I can, delete it or substitute. Same for inside the parentheses and things like that. So that's really cool. Both that difference with I and A, depending on whether you also want to select that surrounding character. Depends on what you do. So again, these typical ones are there. Another interesting tip is that I don't use that often, but it's very good to know, is the movement with the word versus what I always use, the lowercase w versus the uppercase W, that is, well, a word that is separated with a space. So for example, if you have something like a function call, then usually W just jumps to the next thing that is delimited by a word or special character. So, this one, list dot, is now not a space of it. Or if you have, something like this, you would just go almost character by character or word and then plus special characters. If I do uppercase W, it goes all the way to the end. Why? Because then this just looks for the next blank, for the next white space. Which is helpful if I say I want to remove everything here, maybe until the closing parenthesis. I could go something like CF and then parenthesis, brackets where it closes. But maybe I have multiple of these, and then I already need to calculate, so then this would leave this one open, or I can just say C and then uppercase W, and then this just basically selects or does the action until the next white space, or the really end of the word. These are which are characters without a white space in between. So that's pretty cool. It's just nice to know that difference. If to say, okay, for that uppercase word, it basically goes all the way there to the next word here, or CW is very helpful, or delete word D, sorry, I didn't press this, DW, and that just deletes that whole structure or replaces it accordingly, which is really helpful. So it's just good to know that difference. I'm pretty sure you know about W, but uppercase W is also really helpful. Now, another thing that probably you have seen if you followed my channel before, but I wish I had done this a little bit more with more thought, because it's really flexible, is to invoke some commands. Basically anything that you could do on the command line, you can invoke from inside Vim by just saying, well, you select something and then colon, exclamation mark, where you can do stuff. So let's say I have something like a JSON object, hello world. And I can, of course, invoke something here where I say bang JQ dot, and I can, for example, pretty print that. Okay, so which is especially helpful if I have a lot of these. So for example, that's going to be just all in one line. And then I say, please pretty print this. That's really helpful. Oops, that's really helpful. I did something wrong here. Oh yeah, this was not a valid JSON. Sorry for that. 1, 2, 3. So let's do this again. Now this is basically just pretty printed, which is kind of cool. Now we could also invoke some other commands. There are many things that you can do. Another very helpful thing is, for example, to sort something. So if I go there, bang, sort, which is just a Unix sort that you can invoke, so line by line, that would just work quite nicely. You can combine this with some unique. So for example, sort and then pipe unique, which then also does this. So basically anything that you could invoke on the command line, which is really cool, because if we say, well, we can take the whole input and do whatever we want, we can invoke, for example, some other stuff. Maybe you've seen this on my YouTube channel. I showed how to do, for example, a title capitalization. So this is a title. If I say I want to capitalize this, almost every word except the A, because of, well, reasons. So this just invokes some script here, and you can do stuff on the command line there, or actually invoke commands which are really helpful. And you can invoke pretty much anything. That's how I do my presentations. If I have some title here and I say I want to have this, for example, very big as an ASCII art, or do some other stuff with it, it's very interesting to just invoke things here. Also with the contents, if you say you do some technical writing, what I like to do, I like to write some ASCII doc here, and then I would like to, let's say, have a preview of this. So this is now just some sort of ASCII doc formatting, which I can preview. I have just a preview here that does the ASCII doc compilation, opens this up in the browser, so I can quickly preview that, well, and go back. So this is just a shell script that I wrote for that purpose, and then it invokes these things. You can do multiple steps there and just invoke this basically from in Vim from the command line. Another helpful tip that I should have done much earlier is a similar automation that you can do with any snippets. So a snippet is something that you can predefine, very similar to a live template in your IDE, where I say, for example, please type my name, and then this is just much faster, which is really helpful. You should definitely have this for, the typical things that you write. Doesn't matter if it's just a normal, prose that you write as a text, or some sort of technical terms that you type and press all the time. This is really helpful. It can be an email signature, whatever you always type, it's just much faster with that. But depending on the plugin that you use, you can also do dynamic things, which is really helpful. So for example, the current date, or a current time, some sort of Unix timestamp or a UID, whatever you keep doing yourself. So you can just, in the same way, sort of invoke a script, but already in line while you're typing. And that's just pretty cool. So to do things like that is just really helpful, similar to some boilerplate code or boilerplate, text snippets that you always keep typing manually. This is really, really helpful. And another thing that is kind of cool that I just started to do recently, that depends a little bit in which way you would like to use Vim. So for example, if you like to use it more as a knowledge system, or even as in direction of an IDE, can be even with plain text, but to do more than just editing one file at a time, you can, for example, say, well, I would like to have this default file explorer, this NetRW or however it's called, that ships with Vim, which is not the most fancy or helpful one, but it's basically still possible to just use it and then move around some directory structure that I have here. This together with using some plugins just for a fuzzy find or a search, which I'm using here with this files integration there. So for example, if I say I would like to open up a file similar to what you would do in your IDE, then I say I would like to open up this particular greeting, which I can fuzzy find by just typing this here and then opening it up there. Especially if you open up Vim in a directory and say then take anything starting from that current starting point. When you open up some sort of bigger project, for example, for a documentation structure that you would like to have in your Vim editor and things like that, that's also just helpful. This together with some search that you can do in the same way. So if I search for a particular structure here, then it's just helpful as well to do this and then to jump around. So that is also something that I don't use very often, but when I use it, it's really helpful because it's much faster rather than to go back to your command line to grab search this manually, which is also actually quite fast and helpful. But still, once you can stay inside Vim, open up a new buffer where you have this file open then already. That's just kind of cool to know about these things as tips. So I hope this was helpful, especially together with some other videos I have on this topic. Feel free to check out these tips. This video was a little bit more about the actual movements and typing. If you have some other tips, I'm happy to know them. Please put them into the comments down below. And also, if you're interested in the topic of effective development, I have a whole video course on this topic, also linked down below, and you can check this out. And I hope this was helpful, and thanks a lot for watching. Bye.